What's good, guys? Matt from Duality Gaming here, giving you another video, more discussion video than news video, because it's the 12th of December and it's towards the end of the year. There's no gaming news to really be had. You know, we've had the news highlights of the year. I may do something roughly like that. You know, like a man pleasuring himself over a PS4. I may mention that in another video. I know that's a couple of weeks old, but that's still funny to me. This video mainly came from me seeing someone else's video. It's Failed to Listen, good channel. If you ever get the chance, check him out. I may link him in the description, I'm not sure. But then I also looked it up, and there was also a Kotaku article. I don't know if he got it from there, but I'm going to use the Kotaku article as well as what he said in his video and just kind of give my own opinion. And for those of you that have actually watched some of my videos, you may know what kind of stance I have currently on the 8th gen of consoles. And it's not that I hate the 8th gen of consoles, I just don't like where it's going, if that makes sense. I like my PS4, I like my Wii U. The Xbox One, if you ever watched the Roundtable, is too fat for me. Like, genuinely, I'd fucking need a truck to get out of my house. No, I won't. But that's not the point, you know. And I also talked a lot about remasters, which is a big thing in this gen. Definitive editions, which is kind of the same as remastered, you know. These kind of rehashes and so on and so forth. That is also an issue, and I did talk about season passes and day one DLC and this, that, and the other as well. Basically, the company's trying to milk you for as much as possible, and that's kind of like the same as what I'm going to talk about now. And it's kind of, obviously, the game in the background, Psychonauts, by the way, I forgot to mention. And I probably should have used a different game. And by the way, I know I suck at the game. Don't, that's just there as background mainly. This is more of a thing for me to discuss how this is. And basically, today, I know it's taken me 2 minutes. I'm going to talk about another issue in the 8th generation of consoles. And it's not really a, maybe it's not an indicative thing of the 8th gen, but it's something that is very apparent, or is getting more and more apparent, and it's becoming more and more less tolerable to people, and it's actually quite funny to watch at times. So today, even though we're 2 minutes in, I'm going to talk about multiplayer only games. Literally, games that just get released as multiplayer and nothing else. So Star Wars Battlefront, so Evolve, so Titanfall, which is really Deadfall. Games like that that come out and essentially give you half a game for full price. And really, anyone supporting all of the Star Wars Battlefront like propaganda, you know, buying a full game day one and buying the season pass, you're essentially appeasing this stupid propaganda model that EA have been instilling into people, where I think it's a good idea to essentially buy 2 games for the price of one, where it's not. And essentially, with this, multiplayer only games are becoming a serious problem. Not because of their well, yes, because of their content, we'll get to that in a second, but because of their price. They are the same price as normal games, okay? And okay, let's just going off topic real quick. I'm going to compare 2 games. I'm going to compare GTA San Andreas, old game, no multiplayer, to Titanfall, for example. Or, unless you want to go in the same generation, Twisted Metal Black online. There's 2 differences. GTA San Andreas on the PS2 is a story-only game. I can play that whenever I want. I can do whatever I want in that game. And there's no worry about, is there going to be anyone online? There's no worry of a dead community. Whereas Titanfall or Twisted Metal Black Online, the community has a certain time. Well, Twisted Metal Black Online's dead, like fully dead, like the servers aren't up, essentially. But stuff like Titanfall, the only thing keeping that game alive is the community. And to be fair, I bought a game the other day, well, yesterday, and I almost bought Evolve, but I didn't because I thought against it. But my opinion on this is, these games that are charging you full price for half a game essentially, for the same content they would have had in the game anyway if they had a story, because there are games that have story and multiplayer and still have a good amount of content. Like Battlefield 3 had a story and a multiplayer, and it had a good amount of content. So Bad Company 2 had a good multiplayer and good story content, and also it was probably one of the only games that had really good DLC, which is Vietnam, and I do love Vietnam. And basically, what I'm trying to get at is essentially, we are getting screwed in the actual grand scheme of things, because things like Evolve, which have no story but came out the same amount to as a normal game is a rip-off, because these developers will release games with a serious lack of content to make a big profit, essentially. And I know games are getting bigger, I know they're getting more expensive, I understand this, but it's the fact that these games, stuff like Star Wars Battlefront, for example, I think it only released with 8 maps, and of eight of those maps, only 3 of them are actually good. And that's a piss take. Call of Duty has released with more maps than that. I know Call of Duty is a smaller multiplayer, but it still came with a story whether you like it or not. Do you know what I mean? And essentially, this is the problem, another problem with devs and this generation, is that the consumer is allowing this to happen, where we are paying for games that are just half games, and essentially, and then buying a season pass on top of that, especially with Star Wars Battlefront. I know I'm ripping Star Wars Battlefront, but it's the best example of something that could actually potentially be a more apparent thing within the future. And I know only online games can work. Like, there are some that work. Like, this article mentions Dota 2 and League of Legends, which are free-to-plays. But again, they're free-to-plays, so you're not really expecting much. But some free-to-plays probably do have more content than some of these fucking only online games that ship with pretty much a thing that would have been the same multiplayer if they had a campaign. But it's literally less effort on the devs' part just to make an only multiplayer game, because half the scripting is done by the player itself, and then they focus on other things like pretty graphics. Like in the case of Star Wars Battlefront, there are prettier graphics and less content, and I don't understand why people want a pretty game. Why would you want a pretty... Oh, I understand why you want a pretty game, but why would you rather a pretty game over content? That's what I am not understanding in my head. And essentially, I can't just get around this enough that it's just... there's no content to be had. And this game the article even mentions Counter-Strike, which is apparently a $15 game, but you can obviously get Global Offensive for a lot cheaper if you just wait for a Steam sale or something. That's a multiplayer-only game, and that has more content than these only online games, like Titanfall, which is gone. What happened to Titanfall after a week? What happened to Evolve after a week? The only game, and I'm not even sure the longevity of Star Wars Battlefront, to be completely honest with you. EA will probably milk the fuck out of it, but honestly, it's just, the point I keep trying to get at is that these games should not be priced at this much for the lack of content. If you're going to release a multiplayer only game, and like Fail to Listen said, it should be at least 15 to 20 maps, a lot more gun options, a lot more customization. Why no one has done the gun customization of Ghost Recon Future Soldier is absolutely beyond me, besides they're lazy. Because if you've never played that game, I really recommend it, even if you just like to fuck around with guns. Because you can have the same gun and have it completely different to someone else. But that's the kind of content I'm talking about. It's just, there is a serious lack of content where there really shouldn't be to justify the price. And that's something I did mention in a prior video, that I feel like I will buy a game depending on how much I feel the game is worth. There's a game I bought recently, which is Metal Gear Solid 5, which I only paid £19 for, and it's a lot more on Amazon. And I feel like I should have paid more for that. Obviously, I'm happy I paid that less. But even that game, probably the same high budget as these like Evolve and Titanfall, still has a story, still has an online. Granted, the online came out late. So there's no excuse for the developers putting out these multiplayer-only games that have a serious lack of content. And pricing it at full price. That's my essential thing. And then in some case, EA doing season passes along with it, which cost essentially another game, and for promises of just things that you may or may not get. You know, you're getting fucking, little animations of celebrating. What the fuck are you gonna do with that in a game? This is just a piss take of the generation. I'll link the article in the description below. I'll link Fail to Listen's video in the description below. Tell me what you think. I feel that multiplayer-only games, especially at the way that it is right now, with a serious lack of content, and lack of content doesn't actually necessarily mean that you have 4 maps. You could have 12 maps, and they could all be shit. And that's still quite a bit of a lack of content. Because they literally could just be a grey surface of nothing else. And in some cases, in like Battlefield sometimes, they recycle maps in different game modes. I'm not sure if Battlefront does that, but that's a thing games have done. But again, that's a full price game. But tell me your opinion in the comments below. Do you feel you should be paying full price, and essentially the company expecting you to buy a season pass for a game that only has one half of what a game used to be in the 7th generation of games? It used to be, as it was, campaign, multiplayer. And now it's become to the point of where developers are not doing campaigns anymore, and that shows a lack of creativity. That shows a lack of inspiration, and it does make me sad that that's happening. And it's just another indicative issue of the 8th generation. I know I slag off the 8th generation a lot, but it's purely because I've spent money in the 8th generation, and I don't really feel like this generation has blossomed yet. I see a lot of issues with the 8th generation. I don't see very many positives of the 8th generation. Now, that's just my opinion. If you do not like it, I don't care. You can show your opinion and I will respect your opinion, but if you think my opinion is wrong and you try and just ignore it completely and say, banish it, fuck you, because I'm allowed my opinion as well. I'm going off on a different thing. But anyway, as I said, tell me what you think in the comment section below. Like and subscribe, and have a nice day.